In the original Knives Out film, we are treated to a range of stylish outfits. In fact, every character is dressed intentionally, reflecting their personality or their status in the film. Take Richard, for example, always seen in a shirt with a quarter zip. That's a pretty smart casual look, but it's one that is outshined constantly by the vibrant outfits of his wife, who we later learn holds all the money between them. Harlan, the writer, he's the patriarch, he's the monarch of the family. In fact, he is the one responsible for the family's wealth, and that is indicated by the fact that he is the most formally dressed out of the lot, often seen in business formal attire. Even the setting of the film, Harlan's mansion, it's incredibly stylish and bursting with character. But there is one character who stands out among them all, the one that the sequels were all based around.
Enter Benoit Blanc.
So how can you replicate the extraordinary style of the gentleman sleuth? That's the subject of today's video. So how does this gentleman sleuth stand out from the rest, especially considering he's often flanked by two similarly dressed police detectives? Or is he? You see, those with a keen eye for style will notice several aspects of Benoit's style that distinguish him from the other detectives. The first time we're introduced to Benoit Blanc, we find him in a charcoal suit, pale blue shirt and a floral tie. The officers, however, they're dressed in plain suits, but Benoit's has a subtle pattern. It's a tightly woven hopsack tweed. This pattern is more subtle than the likes of herringbone. So from a medium to long distance, it won't seem like there's any pattern at all, but up close, it starts to appear and it adds a bit of visual interest that the other officers simply lack. This actually makes me think of an interview I saw recently. It was Guy Ritchie discussing what he calls the death of the suit. Now, you might know this English director from films like Snatch and The Gentleman, and that latter film also boasts an incredibly well-dressed cast. But in this interview, he discussed how the modern man often apathetically wears suits to work, with zero style or thought or enthusiasm, and it has created a culture where suits are seen as boring and stuffy. And the worst crime at all is that the creativity of the suit has been robbed from us. So if you can relate to that feeling, but if you want to start getting into suits or even sports jackets, then I think the best way to do this is not to play it safe and be boring with a flat coloured suit, but instead take some inspiration from Benoit Blanc, bring in a subtle pattern. Now, if you want something that's slightly more attention grabbing when it comes to patterns, go for the herringbone, okay? If you want something more subtle, go for the hopsack tweed pattern that we see in Knives Out. Now, the reason that I say that is because when it comes to things like herringbone, that pattern, you can see it from a little bit further away, so it's a bit louder, whereas the hopsack, you have to be very close to actually be able to see it. It's a little bit more subtle. And in my personal opinion, when it comes to patterns, large checks on suits, even small checks on suits, I don't really like them, not a fan. They strike me as a little bit gaudy, so I would avoid them. Maybe that's just me. Now, before we talk about the shirt, one final thing to observe about the jacket, and this might surprise you if in your mind you always think that suits are inherently formal, but the suit jacket here has some pretty casual elements to it. Note the patch pockets stitched onto the outside of the suit. These are always less formal than vented pockets. And this is part of the reason that I think this overall style works. Even though Benoit Blanc is wearing a suit, a tie, a pocket square, it doesn't look stuffy. Okay, there's a casualness to his outfit, which begins with the patch pockets, but it's continued with the tie and the pocket square. More on those elements in a moment. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's go back to the sky blue shirt for a moment. At first glance, seems like there's nothing much to say about this. But do you notice anything different from the kinds of shirt we see nowadays? Take a look. That's right, it's a long point collar, sometimes referred to as a spear point or a dagger collar. And this was quite popular in the 1920s until the end of the 1950s. It's another subtle detail that gives the viewer sort of a nostalgic, elegant and sophisticated vibe. Me personally, it subtly reminded me of some more old-fashioned characters like Sherlock Holmes, and no doubt that was intentional. And because the collar itself has a narrow spread, meaning the 2 points of the collar are closer together than normal, it naturally lends itself to a smaller tie knot, like the 4-in-hand, which is exactly the knot that Benoit uses throughout the story. And it's the one that I'm using right now. In fact, let's spend a little bit of time on those details, because while the suit stays the same throughout the film, the ties and pocket squares change each day. On day 1, we've got what looks like either a dark brown or a black tie with sky blue floral pattern. And that's paired with a neutral cotton pocket square, folded into what looks like a scallop fold. It's hard to tell. Now this is very intentional. The blue color here and on the shirt, it complements Benoit's eyes, which are very piercing blue, and the pocket square complements his complexion. But pay attention, which one draws more focus? If you said the tie, then you're right. It's much louder in its colors and its pattern than the relatively muted pocket square. Now let's look at day 2 of the film. We see the roles actually reversed here. This time it's a more muted tie. The tie here is navy with a burgundy floral pattern. In fact, because navy and burgundy are both so dark, it's initially quite hard to see that there even is a pattern, okay? So it's really subtle, but that's exactly the point. Because this time it's the pocket square that's the focus. It's a light and dark Bengal stripe. In terms of the fold, couldn't actually pin this one down. Looks kind of effortlessly stuffed into the breast pocket, and maybe that's intentional because it adds a bit of sprezzatura to the outfit. So if you're a man who's into suits and sports jackets, or maybe you want to get into them and you want to take that next step by bringing in a pocket square with a tie, then here's the lesson from Knives Out. Do not go for a matching tie and pocket square. That to me, it signals that either you're a little bit boring or that you outright lack the creativity and the eye to put the outfit together yourself. Now that might not be the case, but that's what that combination says to me whenever I see it. Now at the same time, don't make the mistake of going for a tie and a pocket square that are both so loud that they compete with each other for attention, because that'll sometimes make you look like a bit of a clown if both of them are a bit too loud. Instead, what you want to do is choose one, okay? Choose the tie or choose the pocket square to be your focus for the outfit. Now, whichever one you choose, that's the piece to use to bring in either an interesting new pattern or new colors. The other one is simply there for support, okay? Match it maybe to a color that's already present in the outfit to keep it subtle. Okay, let's talk about the coat for a moment, which we see on occasion worn over the suit. This one, it's a herringbone tweed raglan coat. Now, if you're not familiar, raglan describes the type of sleeve, meaning the seam that separates the body from the sleeve. It goes from the underarm towards the collar or the neck, okay, as opposed to a more vertical path from underarm to the corner of your shoulder. Now, this sort of seam, the raglan seam, that's particularly good for offering freedom of movement. But anyway, I digress. This look works, okay? And it works because similar to the tie pocket square situation, the coat is the focus. That herringbone pattern here, it's relatively loud. We can actually see it from quite a distance away. The suit is just playing support, okay? Like I said, it's got that subtle hop sack pattern, but you can't see it from the same distance that you can see the herringbone from, okay? Another interesting aspect of this jacket that I noticed are the tabs on each of the cuffs. Just a nice feature that you don't really see nowadays. One thing I'd like you to focus on is that the outfit is already fantastic before he even dons the coat. The coat just levels it up further. And I think a lot of men could take inspiration from this, because as men, we sometimes fall into this trap, okay? And the trap is we think that we can have coats that either perform well against the elements, or we can have coats that look good. And the result is, you know, maybe you've managed to put out a 10 out of 10 outfit, it's absolutely fantastic, but then you ruin it by putting on a practical Mackinac sack or something like that, something that just ruins it, doesn't go. But you can have your cake and eat it too. You can have something that looks good and performs against the elements as long as you understand the strengths of each fabric type. This coat, for example, being a heavy tweed, that will protect against the cold, but it'll look excellent while doing so. Okay, little challenge for you before we finish up. Take a look at this picture. What is wrong with this image of Benoit Blanc from the first film? Any guesses? That's right, he's committing the cardinal menswear sin of wearing both suspenders and a belt. Now don't panic, this never actually happens in the film. It's probably just a production error or some sort of production still where the wardrobe didn't catch it in time, but it does give us the perfect opportunity to talk about how suspenders are supposed to work. So Benoit Blanc actually wears dark navy braces or suspenders with a Y back and black leather ends. And these leather ends are buttoned onto the inside of his trouser waistband, not the outside. And that's the key point. Proper braces attach with buttons, not metal clips, okay? Clips are fine for a costume, but buttons are what you'll find on well-made trousers. They tend to sit a little bit flatter, they look cleaner, and they won't chew through your waistband like the clips will. Plus, with the metal clip type of braces, you run the risk of experiencing the dreaded sensation of one of them pinging off at the worst possible moment. Suspenders or braces, they also do something that a belt can't do. They keep your trousers sitting at one consistent height all day with zero cinching. That's why you'll usually see them on high-waisted trousers, pleated trousers, or anything with a more vintage silhouette. And braces, suspenders, they can work really well for all kinds of men. Those with larger waistlines that maybe make wearing a belt a little bit uncomfortable due to its cinching, or even those with narrow waistlines in which a belt barely holds up the trousers and requires constant fixing throughout the day. So if that's you, experiment a little bit with suspenders. See what they're like. You can always hide them if you don't like the look under a casual waistcoat or a jumper or something like that. That can work really nice if you don't like the look, but you still want the benefits. Okay folks, let me know down in the comments below if you enjoyed this video, because I certainly had a lot of fun making it and rewatching Knives Out. What do you think about Benoit Blanc's style? Are there elements that you're going to incorporate into your wardrobe? Looking forward to chatting with you down in the comments section. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.